In this final lesson of the chapter, we're going to use Python and CGI to do some form processing. In this case, we'll stick to a very simple form where we convert a Fahrenheit temperature to Celsius. But that will show you the techniques you need to use to be able to send form data to a Python program to perform some sort of task. So the first thing we're going to do is build a form. We'll just call it form.html. Let's put the window up here a little bit better. There we go. So we start out with our meta tags. Then a title. And then our body, and the first thing we'll do in the body is create a form. And when you are going to process form data, the form has to have an action attribute set, which is simply telling it where the CGI program is going to be located. So we'll give it the path to our CGI bin subdirectory and the program tempconv or temperature convert.py, which will be the program that converts the Fahrenheit temperature to Celsius. Then we'll prompt the user to enter a temperature to convert to Celsius. Then we create a text box. We'll name it temp and size it to 10 to make enough room to enter at least a 3-digit number. And then the only other thing we need is an input button. So we'll do that next. Name it. And that's all we need for the form. So we'll close off the form, close the body, and close HTML, and we're ready to go. So we'll save that file. We'll leave it open just in case we need it. Now we're ready to write the CGI program. So we'll move to a CGI bin directory. And we'll type notepad temp conv.py. Put that better into view. There we go. And we start out by importing the libraries that we need. Same 3 we always have been using. Begin by writing out our header. And we need 2 carriage return line feeds, so we'll add those in. Then a blank line. Then we'll begin writing out our HTML. So we'll write out the HTML tag and body first. Then we're going to create a header. Fahrenheit converted to Celsius will be our title, or heading. First thing we have to do is use field storage to get our form data into our program. The next step then is to perform the conversion. Since we only have one piece of data in the variable form, we're just going to use that as is. We'll say form temp, because that's the name of the text box that holds the temperature entered, and then we want to return the value of that. So that's why we type form sub temp. Notice that temp is in quotes, .value. That will take the temperature entered as a string, convert it to float, and store it in the variable var. Then we'll create another variable Celsius, and then we'll perform the conversion on that, which is 5.0 times the Fahrenheit value minus 32.0 divided by 9.0. And that will convert a Fahrenheit temperature into Celsius. Now we're ready to write that out. So we're having a %.1 so that we'll have a floating point. And then another format string for the Celsius temperature. And then our actual values, var and Celsius. And then all that's left to do is close up our HTML. So we close the body tag, close the HTML tag, and we should be set to go. So to review what we did again, we wrote out a header, we began writing some HTML with a heading. We used the field storage function to pull the form data into our program. Then we retrieved that piece of data using form subtemp.value, convert it to float because it's a string as it's entered from the form, store it in the variable var, then perform the Fahrenheit to Celsius conversion, store that variable in Celsius, then write out the results, and close out the rest of our HTML. All right, so let's see if all that works. So we're going to save this file, go back to our command prompt, start the CGI HTTP server. Now we're ready to load the form. So we're going to type localhost 8000/form.html to load the form. There's our form. Type in a value. Let's do 212. Click the submit button. And 212 Fahrenheit equals 100 Celsius. Let's try another temperature. Let's do freezing point this time. So we'll enter 32. 32 Fahrenheit equals 0 Celsius. Notice how the temperature value 32 and the value of the submit button are passed as query strings, which we learned about in the last lesson. So that's how you process form data using Python. And admittedly, that's a simple example, but you should have the basics down now to be able to write a much more involved example to process any type of data you want to retrieve from a web page using Python. And with that, we're ready to move to the next chapter where we talk more about connecting Python to a database to display dynamic data in a web page.